welcome to Business Line. What does Yanis Varoufakis have in common with Franklin D. Roosevelt? The Greek finance minister answered this question when he tweeted FDR's quote, "They're all unanimous in their hate for me and I welcome their hatred." It came straight after the meeting in Riga and just before the Greek Prime Minister reshuffled his bailout negotiating team. Euronews' Efi Koutsokosta spoke to Yanis Varoufakis, and this is what he said about his Eurozone colleagues and the atmosphere within the Eurogroup.
We are adults, we are colleagues, we respect and even like each other. Now, the fact that there are political differences and that there is a certain intensity at times regarding the evolution of the negotiation does not detract from the fact that we have, at a human level, excellent personal relations.
Efi now joins us from Brussels. Efi, you've been following the Greek talks for weeks now. What's your view?
There have been 5 Eurogroup meetings since the new Greek government took office. What we have seen so far was an escalating intensive negotiation process with leaks of documents and a war of words which came to a dead end in Riga. It was the first time that the ministers were so keen to give inside information about what happened in the meeting, often describing clearly the isolation of the Greek minister. What they were all saying is that too much time was lost with discussions on the process, while the Greek minister insisted that significant progress has been made. So the message of the Eurogroup was clear and quite hard for Mr. Varoufakis and Greece.
Just after the meeting in Riga, Greece's bailout negotiating team has been reshuffled. It's now up to Efi Koutsokosta to deal with the creditors. What do we know about him?
Tsakalotos is a 55-year-old Oxford University-educated economist who used to be an academic. He cannot be considered as a new entry in the negotiation team. Himself, Varoufakis and the Vice President of the government, Mr. Dragasakis, were from the beginning in charge of the political negotiating line. He seems to be more amicable to creditors than Varoufakis in terms of attitude, as he is a more low-profile person. He is close to the Prime Minister, he is a leftist politician, and although he strongly supports Eurozone membership, he is also against further necessary recessionary measures. So what we could expect is a less intense mood, but without any big change in the substance of the political debate.
There was Euronews Brussels correspondent Efi Koutsokosta. Efi, thank you very much indeed. Syriza is set to mark its first 100 days in government. We've seen how it's all been going on with the Eurozone partners. Let's now see if anything has changed for the government back home. According to the latest polls, Varoufakis has significant support among the Greeks. We're now joined by our correspondent in Athens, Stamatis Giannisis. Stamatis, what's the atmosphere there?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the government still enjoys a high rate of popularity, and that despite the fact that they had to postpone the delivery of many of the big promises they made before the elections, like a raise in the basic salary or the abolition of an unpopular property tax. The people, however, still appear willing to give time to the government of Mr. Tsipras, although sooner or later the Greek Prime Minister will have to make some crucial and maybe unpopular decision. And that in turn means that he will have some serious explaining to do, both to his voters and to his party hardliners. One thing is for sure, the Greek government at some point in the very near future will be running out of time, either with the country's creditors or with its voters' patience.
There was Euronews correspondent in Athens, Stamatis Giannisis. Stamatis, thank you very much. One of the most anticipated financial results from the world's most valuable company by market capitalization, we of course mean Apple. The company revealed its second quarter results. The figures surprised many, particularly those who were skeptical about Apple's latest iPhones.
Apple is reporting a profit of almost 12.5 billion euros for the first 3 months of 2015 on the back of surging iPhone sales. That's up by around a third on the same period last year. Apple has also boosted its revenue by 27% compared to the same quarter in 2014. The technology giant sold more than 61 million iPhones, a hike of 40% on a year ago. But iPad sales were down by almost a quarter. Apple says it's raising its share dividend and boosting its share buying program amid the latest financial results.
With Apple, it's almost always the same. Straight after the presentation of a new product, the critics jump to say the company is not as it used to be and Apple is almost finished. And every time the company replies with the sales figures. What's behind them? That's what we look at this time. This is it. This is IT.
How to summarize Apple's results in one sentence? Well, basically in Cupertino, they discovered the second Christmas. Driven by gift buying for the Chinese New Year in February, iPhone sales in the country grew 70% from a year ago. Not to mention the other product segments. Mac sales utterly bucked the trend of declining PC market by going up 31%, and App Store revenues more than doubled. Even the iPad, Apple's black sheep with a 23% decline in units sold globally, had its best quarter in China, according to the CEO. In the conference call with analysts, Tim Cook ascribed the success to more and more people becoming middle class. He didn't provide any market research data on demographics though, just like he didn't share figures for the recently released Apple Watch. All we know is that, sadly, countries that were not included in the first launch wave will have to wait until late June. That's because, according to Apple, demand remains greater than supply, and in the current quarter, the watch is off to an exciting start thanks to more than 3,500 apps already developed. That was it. That was IT.
Looking ahead, as the UK election just days away, the country's economy has slowed down. The first 2015 results cast shadow over the campaign. The Chancellor, George Osborne, said, "It's good news that the economy has continued to grow, but we have reached a critical moment. The bad news is that's the last major economic news to be published before the election."
A shot across the bows of Prime Minister David Cameron. That's a political analysis of figures released on Tuesday, which showed Britain's economy slowed sharply in the first 3 months of 2015. Gross domestic product grew by 0.3% in the January-March period, the slowest quarterly rate since the end of 2012. The country's dominant services sector slowed and construction contracted by 1.6%. "You shouldn't take too much on one quarter's figures," was David Cameron's reaction, whose Conservative Party is neck and neck with Labour ahead of the election. The preliminary reading of GDP is largely an estimate, and the figures are often revised.
That was it for now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.